that. Don't be harassing these people saying I sent you to harass them, okay? Hey guys, it's Noreen, and thank you for making it to my channel, All Things Noreen. Today I want to talk about CDI, what it is, how I got into it. It has been over a year now since I've been doing it, and I'm going to let you guys know how I feel about it, and let you guys know how you guys can get into it, because I know a lot of nurses are tired of bedside, they want to go remote, and you are here at the right place, because I'm going to help you, I'm going to let you know. Okay, so first things first is I am CDI. In CDI, it is a hidden gem. I don't feel like it's like talked about enough. It does stand for Clinical Documentation Integrity. You are a Clinical Documentation Integrity Specialist. So basically what you're doing is you are going through the charts, okay? You're going through the patient's charts, you're going through the EMR, you're going through, like my hospital uses Epic, we're going through Epic, we're going through the doctor's notes, you're looking at consult notes, you're looking at ED notes, consult notes, nephro, GI, neurosurgery, all the consult notes, and you're going through the doctor's notes. And what you're doing, you're also going through like PT, OT, registered dietitian, SLP, speech. Yeah, you're going through all that. You're looking at their diagnostics, x-rays, ultrasound, CTs, MRIs, all that stuff. So basically what you're doing is you're going through this chart and you're looking for diagnosis. You're looking for things that are maybe there that should not be there. And then you're going to send what is called a query to the doctor to get it removed or added. For example, if a patient comes in, you see they're sick, they have a fever, tachycardic tachypnic, they got pneumonia, they're getting ipratropium, their labs are elevated, procal elevated, lactate elevated, but nobody says the patient has sepsis, but this patient's on ceftriaxone, Zosyn, whatever, but nobody says sepsis. So what you're going to do is you're going to collect all the data that I just told you. You're going to put it in a query. You're going to send it to the doctor. You're going to say, hey, these are the vitals, chest x-ray. We have some bilateral opacities, whatever. You're going to say these are the labs, procal elevated, lactate elevated. Patients on ceftriaxone, Zosyn. Does this patient have sepsis? Sepsis due to pneumonia. Because they said pneumonia, but they didn't say sepsis. So your job is basically to query for that sepsis diagnosis, because what it is you need to capture the diagnosis. Sometimes it could be opposite. Sometimes the doctors will say sepsis, the patient doesn't even have an infection. So then in that case, you would have to rule out the diagnosis. And so basically what it is we need the chart to be accurate. That's where the documentation integrity and accuracy comes in. The chart needs to be accurate for when it goes to billing, when it goes to these not hospitals, when it goes to the insurance companies, everything needs to add up and make sense. If not, it could cost the hospital. If you're overcharging, it can cause the hospital. If you're undercharging, it can cause the hospital. So you're looking for these diagnoses to make sure the chart is accurate, okay? So yeah, I ran out of space. But so back into the CDI thing. So like I was saying, that you basically have to make sure the documentation is accurate. You make sure the diagnosis are accurate. If there's a diagnosis that's not accurate, you need it to be taken out. And so when you're capturing the diagnosis, you're helping the hospital bring in money. So you're basically part of the revenue team, not so much clinical. You're behind scenes. You're not doing any patient care. It's just strictly clinical documentation. And you're supposed to be helping the hospital bring in money. At least the amount of money you should be bringing should be equivalent to your salary. So example, if you're making $100K a year, you should be bringing in $100K a year. And a lot of these diagnoses do bring in money once you capture the diagnosis, or even if you're like taking out diagnoses that are not accurate, like that's really what you should be doing. That's your purpose, okay? And so the other thing that I will say is that there's different categories. There's DRGs, which is diagnosis related groups. And so for example, if the patient has respiratory failure, they're going to be in a DRG of respiratory failure. If they have pneumonia, they'll be in a DRG of pneumonia. And it's like everything with all the systems. That's pretty much what it is, will be categorized. Now these DRGs have different weights. Some of these diagnoses have different weights. So the goal is to have the highest DRG possible. You want to have the heaviest weight. And then there's also SOI or ROM, which I'll talk about that later. But basically, these are just like indicators that you're looking at while you're capturing these diagnoses to kind of try to see what's the best diagnosis. And then obviously you want to focus on what brought the patient in the hospital, like what bought the bed. So these are just things that you are doing while you're doing your clinical documentation. And so again, you just want to have that highest DRG possible. Like, it sounds bad, but we kind of want the patient to be as sick as possible, right? Just on paper, not in real life. And just because somebody has sepsis doesn't mean they're gonna not make it. They can totally leave fine. So, and then if they're not that sick, if their DRG is not that high, it's totally fine. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to the accuracy and the integrity. So that is what I basically do. Typical day for me would be I would come in, go through my new cases, go through my charts. Then after that, I'll go through my queries. So the queries that I sent from my previous shifts, when the doctors finally answer them, I have to go answer those queries, put them in the chart, update the documentation. While I'm answering the queries, I'm also going to do a review of the chart to look for any more discrepancies or any other diagnosis that I need to capture. Then after that, you have your re-reviews, so charts that you looked for before. What it is you go through your chart. If you find something, fine, you send your query. If not, you'll just schedule for a re-review. Depending on your DRG, if you have an MCC or a CC, will determine how soon you go through that chart. If it's like a chart that doesn't have an MCC, which is like a major complication, then you want to review that chart like pretty soon, right? Unless you have CCs, like a couple of CCs, then you'll give it a few days to come back and look through that chart. And so basically what you're doing is you're going through the chart, thumbing through the chart, looking for these diagnoses, and you're just kind of basically doing that until the patient is discharged, right? And so so after I do my re-review, then you also have to do your reconciliations, which basically is when the patient is basically being discharged. So you go through the chart, right? And you're capturing these diagnoses, and coding is also going through the chart. Now, coding doesn't typically have a medical background, so that's where you come in, or a clinical background is what I should say. So that's where you come in as a CDI, because you're trying to capture these diagnoses that coding might not capture. And so, for example, let's say a patient has a pericardial window, and then they end up having a post-op pulmonary insufficiency. So there's a code for a post-op pulmonary insufficiency following thoracic surgery. There's a code for a post-op pulmonary insufficiency following non-thoracic surgery. So let's say coding sees this patient has a pericardial window, and they choose post-op pulmonary insufficiency following non-thoracic surgery. Us as nurses, we know that's a thoracic surgery. This is a pericardial window. So then you would have to send a mismatch to the coding team and say, hey, this surgery is a thoracic surgery. Please consider changing your code from non-thoracic to thoracic surgery, because the codes have different weights. And again, it has different weights, and not only that, but you want it to be accurate, right? So then you have to make sure your stuff matches coding. Sometimes sometimes they'll find something that we don't necessarily know, so then we have to change our code to match theirs. So it's like you're also collaborating with them as well, which is why CDIs is very important when it comes to collaborating, because you're collaborating with physicians, you're collaborating with coding, you're collaborating with your peers, your auditors, all that stuff. So collaboration is also very important. So that's basically typically a day, what my day looks like. So for my facility, I've been doing this for a year. It's over a year now. It's definitely much better. When I first started off, I was definitely struggling. I do feel more comfortable now. I don't feel like this job is constantly changing. There's always new changes, new diagnosis, new ways of doing this. It's a lot of guidelines and things like that. So I don't feel like it's ever going to be like, oh, I'm 100% confident or comfortable. But at some point, you do finally get comfortable with what you're doing. And I appreciate that. I am definitely more comfortable now than from when I first started. I was like, what is this? So if you are interested in it, I want to tell you that it does get better. The beginning is a little rough. I even had to go through a little extra orientation because it was just really that hard for me to grasp the concept. And that's also why I came out with a lot of these resources. So make sure you guys check out my resources, because I really put a lot of stuff together that I wish I knew or had before, so that I can help other people who want to become CDI, so that they're able to make the transition and feel more confident and comfortable. So that is pretty much what I do for my job. To say more about the day is that for my job, we can start anywhere from 6 to 9. So I usually go to the gym before work, so I don't start work till 8 or 9. And then I told you guys how my day looks like. And then, yeah, Monday through Friday. I mean, that's one thing I will say that I'm not too crazy about. Coming from bedside, working 3 days a week, that is a blessing that I don't think a lot of us realize we have. However, working bedside is a whole nother conversation. I don't really like working the 5 days a week. I do miss working 3 days a week. I hope in the future I could at least find a job where I work 4 days a week, because 5 days a week is really not ideal for me. Um, but yeah, that's CDI. I really encourage you nurses, if you guys want to get into it, what you should do is, for one, Actis Pro has an apprenticeship CDI bootcamp program, where you can like basically do modules over the weekend. I mean, it's like really short. Like think of modules when you're doing onboarding. I definitely recommend you do this. It's like $300. You're gonna get a certificate showing that you did the CDI apprenticeship. It looks very good when you're applying for a position, because it looks like you really want that position. And yeah, like who wouldn't want that, right? And so the other thing I would say is to, if you can apply for a position in your current facility, just ask for like a transfer. I definitely recommend that. I think that will definitely help you land that job. So I would do that. Definitely update your resume. Okay, so this is the thing. Okay, especially as travel nurses, I feel like some of the resumes just to be too long. Your resume needs to be 1 to 2 pages long. Okay, anything, even 2 pages is pushing it, but 1 to 2 pages long. Okay, you need to make sure that you're highlighting any clinical documentation skills. Okay, show that you can follow some guidelines, some policies and procedures. Show that you can collaborate in a team. Okay, because that's what they're looking for. 9 times out of 10, the person who's reviewing your resume is a nurse, so they don't need to know all that nursing stuff. Okay, they know what you do, but you need to show them that you can work independently, you're willing to learn, you can look up policies and procedures on your own, you know how to follow guidelines, you can collaborate with physicians. These are the things you need to be highlighting in your resume, okay, to make you stick out. The other thing I would say is, if you can contact the manager, or if you can contact the manager, send a short little brief email saying, hey, I'm really interested in this position, I would recommend you do that. Don't be harassing these people saying I sent you to harass them. Okay, just send one email saying you're interested, because when I was doing this at first, I was a little hesitant because I didn't want to come off desperate, but I was like, you know what, how about I make their job easier, because they're going through thousands of resumes. So how about I send you an email, let you know I'm serious about this position, so this is why you need to pick me. Okay, so this is what I'm saying. These are the things you need to be doing to help try to land these jobs, because it'll help you stick out. Not only that, but back to the resume, your resume is going through a computer before it goes through a human, so you need to make sure that those words that are listed in the job description is in your resume matching. Okay, so that way when the HR pulls your stuff, it'll actually go through the system and go to a person, so that they can actually look at your resume. That's definitely something I recommend. Those are just a few things that I could think of right now on the top of my head. If I do think of more, I would recommend, I will make another video, but I definitely want to say anybody can do it. It doesn't matter if you're ICU, med surg, tele, as long as you have nursing clinical background and you know how to capture diagnosis, you know if this patient's on an antibiotic, they obviously have an infection, like you can do it, right? So I definitely want to encourage nurses to definitely look into this position. Definitely do it if you're tired of bedside. Like I'm so glad I did it. I'm glad I took the leap of faith. It was a little scary at first, but it's definitely worth it. Trust me, okay? And if you guys need help, don't forget to check out my resources. I put a lot of work into these resources to help you guys out. These are resources I wish I had, because I literally had to learn everything on the fly. But yeah, I hope you guys found this video helpful. Make sure you guys share with the nurse who wants to possibly transition, who doesn't know where to start or what to do. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Thank you.